Unmute ourselves.
There you go.
Right.
Now ask the
Can you
question.
guys hear me online? Can you just nod your head if you can hear me?
Yes,
Yes,
Okay.
we can hear.
Okay, welcome to the Community Board 8 Traffic and Transportation meeting for today, January 16th. So the agenda so far is we will conduct roll call. I'm the chair, Josh Lamb. We have Sylvia online.
Sylvia.
Hi, I'm here.
All right, thanks. Okay. Now, I would like Debbie Allen here.
Here.
Thanks. Kelly,
Here.
Dr. Wayne,
Present.
and then Margaret Della. Online, no?
No.
I'm technically here, but I can't count towards quorum. I apologize. I missed my train.
Okay,
So-
well, thanks for calling. Okay. Ingrid. Yeah. She online?
No.
Yeah. Okay, Mary Ellen Gibbs.
I am
and
here.
Julie
Present.
Ray. Hi, Julie. All right, next,
Rosemary Ginty, absent.
Rosemary is absent.
And only the meatloaf goes in now, right?
Okay. Now I would like to go to the approval of committee minutes from December 19th.
I had somebody in the waiting room. Make a motion to approve.
Okay,
I don't know what.
would we
I second that.
motion to approve? Great. Thanks. It passed. And those are approved.
But the owl is different, that's for some reason.
Then the chairperson's report. We had 2 SAPOs. And then I would like to discuss how AI could impact transportation. So that will be in the new business in chapter 8. And we will have the DOT speaker in February. And the city bikes will also speak in February.
Can I say something with the city bank?
Hold on.
When you finish.
That is my report for the chairperson report. I'd like to also announce the vice chair, Mary Ellen. And lastly, I would like to ask if anyone could be could take notes as a secretary. And it could rotate monthly for me. I'm throwing that out there. Okay, now go ahead.
I'm sorry, I'm not sure I'll be here for new business, so
Okay.
may I just ask, the committee to consider something on the city bike program that's coming?
Yes.
I can also email this, but I was wondering, first of all, how many sites will DOT strive to establish in Riverdale? And what is their timeline and process? And their criteria for site selection? When I was chair, we had, DOT come and we made it very clear that the board did not want to lose parking spots. And as board chair, Kelly and I signed a letter, giving sidewalks that were extremely wide, like on Broadway and as appropriate sites. They did put them in those sites, but then they also ignored, what we requested, and I understand in Van Cortlandt Village, there was a lot of inappropriate and loss of spots. So my question is, and I could send this to you in an email, will the board be engaged in the final selection? And also, what is the proportion of e-bikes to non-e-bikes in the city bike program? So I know I just threw out a lot of stuff. So
Wait, hold on, what is the What was the last question?
Proportion
A
to
proportion
e-bikes
of
to
e-bikes, I
non.
understand that it's a mixture,
E-bikes?
e-bikes to non, to regular bikes.
Are you talking about city e-bikes?
In city bikes program, yeah,
The
city bikes,
e-bikes.
in the
What's
city
the
bike
proportion?
program,
I'll
yeah.
have to research that and get back. to you.
Well, I mean,
Oh,
I'm sure they can,
Ed's at the door, he might be lying.
oh,
They kept on coming on the meetings with us 100 times, and then they would say they were just putting them over by Sedgwick, they weren't even coming up this way, and then we asked them questions to get back to us with stuff, and they never would get back to us, Kelly, remember, right? And they would get back to us, and then they flooded them everywhere.
Yeah, cause on like Giles Avenue, which is a street where there's homes, there's like
I-
there.
I don't want to say that, I don't wanna say that that's an accurate depiction, of what happened. Because they did get back to us on certain things that we looked at. We did do the walkthrough, what they,
Speak up.
sure, what they promised to do was, I thought the owl was picking up all of that, that's what I wanted. What they promised to do is to come back to us in a year after the program was implemented, it was rolled out in those areas, and the areas that were deemed a problem based on the walkthrough, they said they would come back to us with stats, and they would look at them and see if there was any way to, I don't wanna say move them, but adjust some of the, parking spaces that are there, so remove some of the spaces, the bikes, because they said that they wanted to do a study, which I find very interesting, that when it benefits congestion pricing, everybody has numbers right away, right? But when we ask for the communities, you know, what are the stats for us on a 60-day period? No one can give us anything. So I just find it very interesting with that. But that is what they said, which is why I suggested at last month's meeting that you bring them back in. And these are some of the questions that we can pose to them. And my recommendation would be that you actually send these questions to them in advance. And so this way they can't say they don't know what we were going to ask, because that's also a common refrain amongst agencies, is that they say that they don't know what we're going to ask, but if we're giving them questions, they should come prepared to speak to those questions at a minimum. We may have others based on what they share with us.
I really need the
But-
criteria.
Right,
What is
right.
their, how many
What
do
is
they
the
need, and what is-
criteria?
In
And
order
if
for
I
us to
say,
try to suggest sites.
right, and they did say that they were going to, because that was one of the issues that we had initially, that they were not going into Riverdale. They were concentrating in Van Cortlandt Village, Kingsbridge, and Kingsbridge Heights, and they said, well, they would look into it. We even gave them recommended sites within Riverdale based on usage, right, of individuals there, and they said it wasn't part of the plan. So now, since that's part of the plan, they can come to us at the February meeting and give us some concrete information. We did ask that question. When they did the rollout in, what year are we in? We're in 2025. In 20, we did ask those questions in 23, and they rolled the program out, and they said they would get back to us. So they've had a full year now to massage the data, review the data. It's time for them to come back to us with answers.
Thank you, Kelly.
Yeah, and I'll send this to your email.
Thank you.
And the earlier you can send it to them, the better, because
Yeah.
they will always use, you know, that as an excuse. We didn't send it to them in a timely manner. So if you can send, I don't wanna say next week,
Yeah,
but
I'll send
probably the week, give them at least 2 weeks to get the information. That should be
We're still
sufficient.
coordinating when the meeting, they don't know when the meeting is, so we're still coordinating for them.
I thought our meeting was already set for February.
Our meeting is set, but I just.
We-
Okay, okay. So just ask them, and then,
Yeah.
once they give you a date, and is Teresa still part of it, involved in it?
I'm for research and get back to you.
Well, I thank you for letting me raise this while we waited for Ed, so thank you.
Now that Ed is here, can we move on to
Yes.
the discussion of Priscilla's Law?
Yes.
Item
Yeah.
5.
Well,
Ed?
thank you, Josh. First of all, I apologize for being late, but it's fitting that this is traffic and transportation because I had a hell of a time getting you here. Power outage, all of that stuff. But anyway, so thanks, everybody. Hope everybody read, our resolution.
I have some copies, would anybody like?
Yeah,
Yeah, you know what?
Okay,
We
here,
have copies.
Ed, pass it down and around.
so,
Sunny, that's the one.
I also have copies of the law.
and the law itself, correct?
Yeah, let's start that this way.
We
You could tell I was a teacher.
Clockwise and counterclockwise.
The only one I'm studying and trying to know one, right?
You got it.
So,
Good, thank you.
I'm just gonna kind of start at the beginning, how this really got to my attention. This Priscilla's Law, intro bill 606 is a city council bill that was introduced by Queens Councilman Bob Holden, and they had what basically was a public hearing. It was the Traffic and Infrastructure
Yes.
Committee of the city council, and they had 400 people testify. It was all day. I watched it for several hours, and Laura watched it for several hours. And,
Watch them weep.
right, the whole, well, I will say, you know, the vast majority, like 90% were for this, and then there's people who oppose it for whatever special interests they have. So Bob Holden introduced this, and as of now, as far as I know, there's 29 council members, including Eric Dinowitz, that are supporting this. The mayor, Eric Adams, supports it, and there's a New York City E-Vehicle Safety Alliance that supports it as well. Curiously enough, DOT, Adonis Rodriguez does not support it, which is, you know, that would have been taboo back in the day as far as, you know, going against your mayor, but I guess they consider him a lame duck mayor and they don't care at this point, but that's my own opinion. So the law is named after Priscilla Loke, and a lot of this stuff is in the resolution, but I'll just skim it. So Priscilla Loke was a 68-year-old woman she was an advocate of, you know, Chinatown, and she was killed by an e-biker. They fled the scene in 2023, and that's what, you know, the bill is named after. Our public safety committee, every single month.
I love you.
Two voices.
Every single month without fail, our public safety committee gets resident complaints. I either get them via email or they come to the meeting themselves. Mary Ellen's brought it up numerous times. She's probably the first person that brought this up, almost 2 years ago.
Wow.
Right, so, a lot of complaints about e-bikes, scooters, riding on sidewalks, going the wrong way, people getting hit, and that was the main crux of the testimony, that a lot of people have been seriously injured, by these e-bikes and scooters, and,
Running red lights, ignoring crosswalks, you know.
right.
Why stealing bags?
Right, and we've also had reports from the 50th precinct that e-bikes have been used, in robberies in Van Cortlandt Park, where there's two of them on the bike, and then they, you know, one of them pulls a knife, and then they jump on the bike, and then they leave. So we've had, our committee has had numerous complaints about it. You know, some of the data that is on this resolution, we pulled from the testimony. Consumer Product Safety Commission reports that e-bikes and scooters, you know, led to 250,000 emergency room visits between 2017 and 2020. There were crashes. You can read all this stuff. So the whole premise of this law is to, well, it's simple enough. I'll read it directly. A local law to amend the administrative code of the city of New York in relation to requiring that every bicycle with electric assist, electric scooter, and other motorized vehicle be licensed and registered by DOT and receive an identifying number, which would be displayed on a visible plate affixed to the vehicle. So, and I know Governor Hochul said something today about upgrading a certain weight class of bikes to meet moped standards. I haven't even gotten into that yet, but that's
I could speak about what's going on in the state.
Go ahead.
Well, okay, so in every level of government, Landers, the controller, Hochul on the state level. They're all coming up with different, everyone's recognizing the serious problem, public safety problem, injuries, deaths. This is the first one addressing, Priscilla's Law, the problem in the city council. And, it's for all e-bikes and all electric scooters. Whereas on the state level, Hochul, this is just a proposal she just threw out, would be for the heavier ones that are over 100 pounds and go over 25 miles to be considered in the same classification as mopeds. Now, mopeds are registered by DMV, and that's only been going on for less than 6 months on the state level. And already the sponsors of that say that it's changed the climate, that it's helping because there's some accountability. Right now, there's zero accountability. And I just have some things, because it's a very big issue. You have, here's the controller land use, his strategic plan for street safety. He's working on it. You have an assemblyman on the state level. Here's the nice prop, you know, teachers love props. Alex Flores, analyzing electric bike safety in New York City. It's got tons of data and, you know, what we're seeing is this law to legalize e-bikes goes back to 2020. So in this 5 years now, it's just been a disaster. It's growing by leaps and bounds. They didn't anticipate any of these problems. Clearly, we need more enforcement, but we need to start by registering and having an identification, having a license plate affixed to them. At this juncture, insurance is
They
being
should have
required on
insurance, yeah.
mopeds. That might be another law, and next
They
law,
hit you, there's no
after,
accountability.
you know, after this, yeah, no, I mean, but it's believed that this will change the climate of the Wild West, what's going on, and it's also, the sponsors feel that having the identity will help when there are fires involved with lithium batteries, to identify, you know, it will help in many different instances in that way. I mean, right now it's just, you're totally anonymous, who you are. So that is it, and
Well,
we're bringing this to, you know.
one thing I wanted to add to me that what was one of the biggest, if not the biggest selling point of this, proposed bill is we have surveillance cameras all over the place. We have all kinds of cameras. We have speed cameras. Speed cameras, I mean, some of these things do go fast, but I mean, ideally, you know, they're supposed to get people going over 30, 35. These things shouldn't be going that fast, but some of them do. But I'm more concerned about the Argus cameras and the red light cameras and stuff that can, it takes a picture of the license plate. You can't take a picture of a license plate if there is no license plate. So if these things have an identifying tag on it, is this gonna stop everybody? No, of course not. But if it lowers the amount of people who are, you know, violators, then I think it's a good idea. And it's gonna cut down on, you know, one of the problems we have now with these illegal things, we all know the 50th or any NYPD.
I'm in the middle of something, I can't sign anything.
They're not gonna engage in, chases, vehicle chases, because it's just too dangerous, it's not worth the risk. So, to me, this eliminates all that, because there's no, you're getting a picture of a license plate, you got him. You can issue a ticket without all that risk, so it's a way of issuing tickets, not having the, police chases going on. To me, there's just a lot of pluses. I just wanna give this thing its full context so everybody understands. So in the committee, well, what's the committee chair's name again? I have it, no. So Sylvina Brooks Powers is the chair of the, Transportation and Infrastructure Committee.
Right.
So one of our city council people, Carmen De La Rosa, is actually on this committee. She's not one of the 29. She has not committed, as far as I know, one way or the other yet, and Parina Sanchez is the other one, not on the committee, but hasn't committed also. 29, I believe, is already a majority that could pass.
You need 26 to pass.
Right, but you know, people, they bail because the lobbyists get to them and all that, you know. Okay, so it, you know, they have the votes right now, but we wanna also reach out to, you know, get as much support as possible from our other two council people who represent this district. What that committee has proposed also is an alternate bill. So we saw this in the, in the testimony in the committee. The alternate bill is, what is it, 11?
Intro 1131.
Intro 1131, and all it is it's basically a proposal to, it's what DOT always does. Oh, let's study it, you know, let's study it for 2 years.
And a task force.
And yeah, right, let's study it for 2 years and we'll possibly do a road diet. Well, I don't know what a road diet could possibly do to things we're driving on the sidewalks. But, this is their proposal and, you know, in my mind, it's just a delay tactic to, you know, kick the can down the road. I'm sure somebody will do some serious research, but it's delaying something that's probably a long time coming already. So I would, you know, I personally, and when that suggestion was brought up by Donis Rodriguez, it was met with ridicule from the testimony, boisterous laughter from the crowd. So the people just, you know, we want laws, you know, the people in general want laws, making sure that, these vehicles are licensed and registered. And, it has worked in other cities and countries, and the statistics show that.
Thanks.
So at our last public safety committee meeting, we, you know, there was a consensus to move forward with drafting a resolution. And then we thought it was very important to come to the TNT. And even Parks, we'll go to Parks as well, because these are all committees involved with this issue. And we're just, here to share with you what we're doing, hear your feedback, and
Thank you. All right, let's see if there are questions. Kelly?
So, thank you for that, Ed and Laura. So when I read this, it says other legal motorized vehicles. So do the medical scooters that we see going down the street, does that fit into this requirement? Is that addressed anywhere?
That's a
Because
great
that would
question.
be-
wait, where is that?
Because it says other legal motorized vehicles. The term other legal motorized vehicles means any wheeled device powered by an electric motor or by a gasoline motor that may be legally operated in the city. Is not is legally operated. So
Kelly, your
the,
question is,
the medical scooters that there are a number of people that use them to get around. That is their mode of transportation.
E-bikes and scooters.
No, but I understand Kelly's
That's a
question.
scooter.
Yeah.
Right, but based on how this is written,
With medical.
or would those devices be part of this requirement? Because then it becomes very onerous on a lot of people who may not have the means to get the registrations, number one, or are they going to then rely on the practitioners that are prescribing those devices to the individuals
not
to be, well, these are some of the things I wanna make
You
sure.
gotta see in my job. I ran over a few times.
The practitioners to make sure that these devices have license plates, before they're given to the individuals to use.
That's a very good question.
It's a-
Like they do in cars. Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna say that's a great question. I do know that mopeds are required to have some type of, tag, you know, the identifying tag. I don't know the answer to that question. I don't know if Laura does, but that's a great question. And that's something that we should reach out to Bob Holden's office, who was the originator of this bill to find out, and I wish I could say I know the answer, but I don't, so I'm not gonna be as.
No, it's okay, but that's why you're here
Yeah.
also, right, to get
Yeah.
other, to
Right.
get input from other,
They are just as heavy as a motor vehicle.
they're heavier.
We were told at work, cause I deal with that all day at work, that's my wheelhouse, and we were told, watch out when they're coming,
Right.
because when that thing runs you over, it's like getting your foot ran over with a regular car, so it's that heavy.
They're good
Yeah.
70s, 70s,
They-
it's
they-
not
they're-
heavier, they're
They
heavier.
are very, and they're
It
very
depends
fast too.
on the size, because they
They're
have
fast.
various.
I had to chase a couple of patients.
Can we see if there are any questions? Are there any questions of people online about this Priscilla's Law? Anyone?
Raise your hand.
Right there.
Deborah Dolan.
Hi, yeah, I just want to say, that I totally would love to see, registration and licensure for these motorized e-bikes and e-scooters. It's quite a concern to us, when we're, in the park, in Van Cortlandt Park. I lead a nature group, and, there are these motorized vehicles, even though they're not supposed to be there, that are, riding through there. And, I try to get my group off of the trail as quickly as possible, and get onto a different trail, because the Putnam has become a speedway and very dangerous. So there needs to be accountability. And that's the
Sorry,
first
where is
step.
this exactly?
That's the
Deborah,
first
where-
step.
Where exactly? do
The
they go?
Putnam Trail, she said the Putnam Trail.
The Putnam
Yeah.
Trail?
Yeah,
Yeah,
In Van
it's
Cortlandt.
in Van Cortlandt Park, and it's been a problem for a very long time, since the paving of the trail.
Just the guess, not the board members.
Are there other questions? Yes,
I
wait.
think, thank you for all the work that you're doing on this. I think there's no denying that there's been an explosion, pardon the pun, of a lot of these vehicles. And if you look particularly with the rise of the pandemic and delivery services, where there are tons of these unlicensed vehicles that are zipping around. And I think, as been described, in many cases, they're either on the sidewalks and they're either a problem, or they're on the roads and they're violating the rules of the road. In many cases, like zipping, going through red lights or stop signs as if with impunity. And I think that, I think there's certainly precedent for at least some form of registration. I know as a kid, you go to the police department and at least get your bike engraved and registered. And, not that it's the same level of enforcement, but at least there's some data to say, well, this bike belongs to so-and-so. And I think that if you're gonna have a vehicle that is functionally like a moped and capable of causing harm, then at bare minimum, there should be something. I know typically license fees for smaller vehicles are not as onerous and but the reality of the situation is New York is a very unique jurisdiction. And so, while I think a motorized scooter in, say, West Hartford, Connecticut is not as big an issue, it's a very dense area. And there are a lot of people and it is a big risk. And so I think that it's something that should be definitely looked into.
I don't think, anyone is disputing the risk, but my question was really
The
the medical
licensure.
scooters, right? Because those, I think, fall into a different category, so I just wanted to make sure that it was really clear with that, because we all see, the delivery people, and primarily, oftentimes I see delivery people, they're going the wrong way. Even when you're stepping off, let's say the Metro North Station, you come out and you're on a one-way street, right? And all of a sudden, I witnessed somebody get knocked down by a bicyclist, right? Because they're riding the wrong way, because they don't think that they're subject to the vehicle and traffic laws. So I'm for that, but I would just like to get better clarity on the
Okay.
medical device.
In many circumstances, when individuals do have, once they reach a need for rehab's not my domain, but a lot of times there is some sort of certification. You can't just get a motorized scooter just because you want it, at least for the medical side.
Right,
There-
right.
So there is some paperwork, there's some documentation to say that this is linked to.
But is that going to be a requirement if?
Under this law.
Under this law,
Yeah,
is that,
good question.
would that be the
acceptable.
responsibility of the patient, ultimately the patient who the scooter is registered to get the license or the plate, right? Or is that something that the practitioner is already going to
business
have?
is going to
It's
issue
sort
it
of
with
like
it-
a-
with it
that-
on it.
With it on it.
No, that's a good question, but there's scooters now in the supermarkets,
It's-
Target,
right,
there's scooters
right,
everywhere.
Right.
But
right.
those scooters are, I mean.
Those are different.
But those are linked to the facility, right?
And they can't go
and they can-
anywhere, they usually have an alarm on them once they
Okay.
reach a certain path.
There's two questions.
Kelly, I got a
Go ahead.
I got a question for you. So, you know, admittedly, we don't know the answer to whether some, you know, scooters or things used for medical reasons for the handicapped. We don't know the answer to that, but let's say for argument's sake that it comes back that yes, they are required to register just like everybody else. Do you believe that that would be a barrier to passing this law, and if so, why?
I think it would be a barrier, definitely because they're medically necessary, right? And oftentimes you have a number of people who they can't, a lot of the people that use them they can't afford some of the basics in life, right? And then you have the extra burden of having to go through another governmental process of getting a license, for argument's sake, to have this vehicle registered, but they need it, so and who is going to absorb the cost, right?
I think the
Because
disability
the
advocates aren't
taxpayers
gonna go
have
for it.
right?
I think the
Well, they-
disability advocates are not gonna go.
They do, I mean, there are a number of jurisdictions that classify anything that is a mobility aid, and they're exempted.
There
Right,
you
so,
go.
so a true mobility aid scooter is typically gonna be a lower speed.
I don't know, I've seen
Typical.
some new people with their.
Some get tricked out.
Wait, if we could, Margaret, it's a question.
Margaret?
Hi, I guess I was just curious about whether I mean, I guess just thinking about like all of the paper plates and things like that and how difficult those are to enforce, and people can you know, enter information, and you know, they can make up whatever they want and the dates can be ambiguous. And I'm just wondering, like,
That's a
to
big
me,
problem.
it's a lot of enforcement in ways that like are beyond what I think we can handle now. And I don't know, it just seems like a massive thing to try and regulate bikes by having licensure, in which the thing is they can just pop on and pop off those you know, the batteries and sort of the components to be able to accelerate and, you know, go at higher speeds, you know, just thinking about all the deliveries. And are we really addressing what's the problem, or is it just going to be this massive bureaucracy of semi-accurate information that is impossible to trace anyway? And also discouraging people, like older people, or the hills around here are impossible. So like just the enjoyment of having bikes, I think, you know, striking some kind of balance, I think, is also important.
Thank you, you're right about that, we appreciate that. It'd be hard to strike a balance.
I could respond to that.
One sec. There was a lot there.
Well, to one aspect of it. So Margaret, as far as the enforcement is concerned, again, we have cameras everywhere, so if somebody's gonna put a fake plate on a car or a bike or whatever, that's not gonna be something that is gonna be enforceable in any situation. But there are you gotta figure the majority of people aren't doing this. Everybody out there on a bike is not putting fake plates on their bike. So is this gonna be a sweeping be-all end-all to all chaos on the road? No, but it will improve the situation out there, because I feel that people are going to be acting more responsible if nobody wants to come home and get a $35 ticket for something. So it's just like with, the other cameras. People respect speed zones and they respect these things because they don't wanna pay out of the pocket for it. So will it solve everything? No. And to me, it's very easily enforceable. If you have a picture of somebody's license plate, if it's a real license, they're getting the ticket, and that's the end of the story.
And the ghost license plate is something that cars are doing, it's happening with congestion pricing, they're gonna have to come up with something. They, it would seem a shame to not do a common sense solution because of other dysfunctional issues that are going on. I just wanted to say something about disabled because I came upon today something from Jean Ryan, who's the president of Disabled in Action of Metropolitan New York, in response to Landra's plan. She said, Disabled in Action of Metropolitan New York supports the efforts of Comptroller Lander to regulate the use of e-bikes, mopeds, and scooters to make our streets and sidewalks safer and prevent injuries to seniors, blind people, and people with mobility disabilities. We are in fear of getting seriously injured just going to the grocery store. So I think they are talking to people. I don't know if the medical one has come up, but the seniors who showed up en masse in person on like a hurricane day at City Hall, they were screaming about this, and they talked about this.
If I could just look at it from the other point of view, the reason you have a lot of e-bikes is because you have a lot of immigrants that deliver stuff. So I don't think you're looking at the whole equation here.
But we're
You're
talking
looking-
about
you're
red
looking
lights
at a
and traffic.
punitive- You're looking at like the stick part and not the carrot. Like you're looking at the punishment part, but you're not looking at the whole picture. I think it's
But
an
why,
inaccurate depiction of what's going on.
We're looking at public safety.
we're looking at public safety and rules
Yeah,
of
but
the
it's a
road,
much larger issue.
but we're looking for one standard. You stop at a red light, you stop at a crosswalk.
About obeying vehicle and traffic
Yeah.
laws,
Yeah.
that's
It's
really
relative.
relative, it's
That's what
designed,
it is.
right? Because a lot of bicyclists, even the petty powered bicyclists, they go against the flow of traffic, right? And so I think, frankly, if they're going to introduce legislation like this, then they should also have petty powered bikes get tagged also, so that when they violate, that they can be tracked and issue summonses the same way an electric powered bicycle
You
can
guys have
be,
data on
because they can cause damage as well.
Data on what?
Like you're talking about petty powered bikes.
I haven't
That was
come
my
across that
opinion.
term.
The petty powered, with
Those
your
are
feet,
horrible.
the ones that
Oh,
you
with
just,
your feet.
the ones
Yeah,
that you,
I don't know,
I don't think
the
that
regular
is-
the manual bikes, the
If
petty
they can be
powered
tracked,
manual
yeah.
bikes, yeah,
You
right.
mean the old school?
The old school, right.
Yeah.
No,
That's a whole nother issue,
But
yeah.
that's not.
But they
Just
should
long.
look at that as
I
well.
don't
because-
disagree.
God
I don't
willing, if they
disagree.
get this for the e-bikes, maybe they'll
Yeah.
extend. But, yeah.
It'd be great if we could see like
Somebody has
how
their hand
effective
up.
enforcement is.
Deirdre
yeah,
Burke.
Deirdre, go ahead.
Hi, thank you. Can you hear me? I always screw this up. I have two thoughts or comments on this. The first is about the park, because I was once a user of the Putnam Trail and don't use that trail anymore because it is downright dangerous. And I'm 75 years old, and leaping out of the way of motorized vehicles is not the way I want to spend time in the park. In addition, there are other parts of the park where trails are being used by motorized vehicles to the detriment of the wildlife and ground nests. And those are the bikes that will go on the Northwest Trail, and they are illegal in the park. And a law such as this would enable the existing enforcement to take place, because there can be cameras and people will be discouraged from damaging the park. The second thought that I've had about this is we've forgotten about people who use e-bikes responsibly and people who pay for them and use them to deliver food, and they are immigrants and they are victims of crime. because the e-bikes are stolen and they can't even make a report because there is no way of identifying it. So in a way, a law such as this will protect those who are responsible users of e-bikes and respect the property that people have paid for and maintained. Anyway, thank you. Those are my thoughts.
Thank you.
Yes, Deborah?
Well, I just had a thought about, you know, the medical bikes, the medical scooters. Maybe they could be exempted from, you know, the regulation.
Yeah, we're gonna check on that.
I would suspect they were, but I wouldn't, but I wouldn't presume anything.
Very
you
broad,
know?
and it would-
Yeah.
Okay, are there any other comments or questions? If not, I'd like to move on.
No, thank you very much for
Thank
the
you.
time.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
And if you think of anything else, feel free to email us and it's helpful. All
So
this
are you gonna
discussion-
present this resolution or
To
we're
public-
waiting still on Kelly's medical?
Oh, you don't need to present.
Or are you presenting?
Oh, we're going
Public
to
safety.
present this to public safety next week and we'll
Right.
probably have some information on this, yes,
Mhm.
already. And,
Just developing, yeah.
so, and then we plan to introduce it to the full board at the February meeting, and at the full board.
Great.
And so this month, we're hitting it's too bad our committee didn't meet before TNT, the way the calendar worked, you know.
But no, it's good because
Yeah.
now we have more.
Right. And,
I did reach out to the city council person in District 30 who authored this. And so we'll see if he can get back to us. I didn't get back yet. So we'll see what Robert Holden has to say,
Mhm.
as he was the author of the bill. Or sponsored it.
right,
Okay, so
Thank
thank you
you.
very much.
Thank
It's good to raise awareness of that. Old business, Step Street condition study. Yeah. Submitted
I said mine.
2:30, and you guys could submit by next
I
board meeting.
actually have it, I thought I emailed it, but I think I
Oh, okay.
emailed it to myself, so.
Sharing is caring.
I thought I was sharing, but
All right.
that's the hazard of doing things on a phone and not a computer.
So basically, there's the assessment form. I sent out a letter for the rest of the board. If they can adopt that Step Street. Thanks.
This, Ed, this was here for you to.
I have a copy. If we have more items that come up with the Step Streets.
Okay, I can do a survey for the Step Street at 238
And Waldo?
from Waldo. It's deplorable. The conditions are, I just walked up.
Yeah, there's something.
Yes, yeah, but I don't have any photos, so if
Hmm.
someone that's in the area, they could take photos, I can do the assessment.
No, that's wonderful. Thank you.
Okay.
Well, I didn't do photos because there were kids hanging out and I'm like, I didn't
Yeah.
want to be.
That's weird.
Yeah, well, the one at 238,
Yeah, I'm gonna give it a cop.
The Manhattan House Parkway overpass one, anyone have that? Oh, no, that's be taken down, sorry.
there's a lot of.
There's a lot of people, yeah.
Missing from that one on 238 and Waldo, right at the top. So someone, if they have, let's say someone that has a heel, their heel can literally go down
Yeah.
into.
They just, yeah, it's just like a little bit of foam, like stuffing that
Just
they,
takes
that
you.
one, yeah, it's not,
It.
it's not wonderful.
All right.
Oh, Jody.
Jody has a question or comment.
Hi there. Actually, a comment. I did email Farah to say that I wanted to talk about the Bradley Step Street, and she's like, "It's on the agenda already." So,
Sorry, what is it? What?
Bradley Terrace, between Palisade and Edsel Avenue.
That's always been a mess.
Palisades and Edsel.
By the metronome station.
Yeah, how I didn't kill
Yeah.
myself on those steps was yet.
So,
Okay,
so I
well,
just
you
have so Farah sent me the form and was like, "Well, we're happy to have community members do the survey, so I am happy to complete the survey for that." but
Fruit has
it
that.
didn't seem to have spaces for some of the issues. I do walk a lot of the stair streets, and issues that there didn't seem space on the survey was, I think it's the one that goes down to Irwin Avenue. The stair treads are tiny. They're like your feet can't even, I'm a size 9. I have to turn sideways to walk down that stair.
32nd Irwin.
Right, you know which one I'm talking about? It's really steep and it's got very tiny treads. Other stair streets have long, like marble or granite chunks that are tipped.
Designed that way because there's a tight space.
No.
Yeah.
They redid it I wanna say maybe 10 years ago.
I
And
think we should let her finish speaking though, I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah, it's
It's
okay.
not.
It's okay. I'm from a big family, so we all talk at the same time. I can pay attention. So, and then there are other steps. I'm trying to think. I think it's the one on Bailey that there's a series of steps. They go up to like Perot, and then that's how you get to the reservoir. So some of those have the slabs are angled, so that it's tilted in or tilted down. So there's not really a place on the form to note those kinds of things.
Oh, you could, at the bottom,
Just type
where
it
it says
in.
attached photos, you could just write it there, and then you could take a picture. And that would be self-explanatory.
Well, I didn't officially agree to volunteer to do them, so so that's, and then I did put in on the budget request for the Bradley Terrace Stair Street. I believe that is in one of the community board's budget requests. It is different than the other stair streets in that it has asphalt hex pavers, which are traditionally used for park-like settings. And since it leads down to Shorefront Park, I did ask that be replaced.
Shorefront Park.
Edsel Avenue, the oval road that goes to the Metro North Station,
That goes to Metro North
inside
Station, Spuyten
Spuyten Duyvil. Inside that oval road is part of Spuyten Duyvil Shorefront Park, of which I am one of the permitted super stewards for the Parks Department. We maintain that park and do the trails.
The problem with the pavers?
So the pavers, Farah, I had met with Farah and DOT and asked them to replace the pavers, but they're just patching it with concrete. And it just looks terrible and it shrinks and cracks, and they put a ridiculous amount of salt on that street. So so those are some of the things about whether whether the stair streets are actually getting salted or not. You know, like this is a great time to check that out. We did have a little bit of snow. But some of the step streets aren't. So if anybody was doing surveys in the winter, I just wanted to suggest that that's something to put in the notes, is whether it was salted or icy or shoveled, etc.
Thank you, Jody. Yes, Kelly.
Thank you.
Thank you. Jody, is there any way you could call in some of these problems that you mentioned to 311 if you have firsthand knowledge of them? And then come back to the office. I'm not saying go out and do it today, or I'm just saying if you happen to be there, if you notice something is in deplorable condition, is there any way you can actually call 311 to lodge a complaint about it?
So the problem with 311 is that there's not a specific way to report this. You know, like the granite slab is pitched, or, you know, so 311, if you go online, you can look up you can see 311 online. You can literally, that's what the operators do. They search that. So I haven't gone through for the step streets, but I have spoken to the committee numerous times about Bradley Terrace, about the hex pavers. DOT was out with Farah last year and they wanted to replace all the streetlights because people were saying it was too dark. And I said, well, it's because half the lights don't turn on. And they were going to do a capital project, and it turns out that they were only busted fuses, so the lights are back on there. So that's, I don't know if the survey has that, but some of the stair streets have lights, and all the lights are not working. And DOT came out in the daytime. They didn't come out at night to see whether it was dark or not.
Say, which is when most people are doing the assessments.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
why I put.
with Margaret.
Right.
Thank you,
So I just wanted to chime in to say those things before I agreed to do any of the surveys.
Thank you.
So I will think about whether I will do the one next to me, Edsel Avenue.
Thank you very much, Jody. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Margaret?
Yeah, I agree with Jody, and that you know, maybe in the form there should be something that's I don't know if it's a metric that we want to track, but like you're just saying, you know, it doesn't even have to be at night, but it could be at 4:30 this time of year when the step streets are pitch black and you can't see up them. And like one of my beefs with the 238 the not 238 but 231st heading up to Kingsbridge Heights was that the trees were so overgrown that they were obstructing the lights. And so then on top of the light being very dim and there essentially only being like one strong light at the top of the stairs, it was, you know, very difficult for people to get up and down. So maybe there's something that we just want to make more vague about the lights, or I don't know, or just other assorted issues. The other thing is, I think we're gonna have some snow on Sunday, and I live right by the 238 Step Street. So I'm happy to document that because there's typically 2 lanes that form alongside the railings because the pitch is so terrible and DOT is so late in shoveling it. And like over the last several weeks, they didn't even salt it, like nothing. The roads around here were not pre-salted. The step streets, nothing was pre-salted. It was a mess. The other thing I was going to suggest is that people flip. If you know a step street that you go to every single day, go to another step street that's, you know, in Kingsbridge Heights or vice versa. If you're in Kingsbridge Heights, come over to some of the step streets. I think having fresh eyes to see how other people are experiencing things would be beneficial to this process too.
Thank you, Margaret. Okay, if we're done with that, can we move on?
Oh, wait, one more comment, please, Josh.
Yes.
I noticed on the spreadsheet that it listed the stair street from Arlington to Capoc. I don't have it in front of me.
That's the one by 601.
601, 609?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's already being taken care of.
Well,
It's still under review.
They're
I'll
looking
put it
into
at-
it.
They're looking
it's
into that.
still under
they
review.
looked at all the, who owned the property, like.
Okay, because that I thought I saw that in, or I thought I saw that in either one of the Dinowitz's newsletter about DOT was saying it's not theirs and the property owners were saying it was not theirs, but it is mapped as Arlington Avenue.
Yes, thank you, Jody.
Thank
Okay,
you.
we will be
Okay.
moving on. Thank you.
Great.
It was discussed at the board meeting. Okay, any new business? Anyone? Okay, I would like to
Me?
discuss.
New
it
business?
Jody, yes.
It's old business. Edsel Avenue was supposed to be on the fiscal year 24 repave, I think it's called resurfacing schedule. It is rutted with patches. There is an asphalt berm that broke during Hurricane Ida and is allowing water from the bridge, Palisade Avenue and Edsel Avenue to come together and flood into the park. And it has eroded out over 300 feet of trails in the park. And I was told, I think Deb was the chair at the time, that it was on the schedule to be resurfaced in 2024. But that hasn't happened, and the resurfacing schedule no longer says what streets, it did say what streets were on it, so is there a way to find out if that street is going to be resurfaced?
May I?
Yes, Kathy.
I suggest that you reach out to, I almost called her Sarah Farah. Farah.
Same thing, sounds
No,
like.
it's not. Farah, and ask her to coordinate with DOT. And one of the things they can provide for the next meeting that you're trying to get them to attend is to give us a resurfacing schedule. They can fill that.
Okay. Any,
Okay, thank
Margaret,
you.
Margaret, do you have a question?
She's on.
Sorry.
Oops, sorry. Did
You
I-
with us?
No, that's the unmute again. There you go.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. It's from before. I will lower my hand.
Okay, thanks, Mark. Perfect, okay, and then, if there's no new business, I propose that we adjourn,
So
Make a motion
moved.
to adjourn.
and adjourn seconded, and so adjourn.
Thank you.
Thank you,
For me to get home safe. It's snowing.
It's snowing.
yes. Jim?
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night, thank you.
Stop the recording
I will, so they can move this,
so we can.
that's it, right? Yes.
Good night.